if group and VLAN. Those are the two more important concepts in networking. Right? If group. Okay, the full form of if group is interface grouping. Okay, that is the full form of if group. And we used to call it in older data on type versions as WIFs. Okay, WIF, nothing but virtual interface. Okay, WIF is the old name, if group is the new name. Okay, in shortcut we'll call it as IFGRP, if group. Okay, so actually what is if group? What is the purpose, like when we need to configure this if group? We'll talk about those things now. Okay, let's assume that I have a 2-node cluster. Okay, and have two interfaces, network ports on both the cluster, both the nodes in the cluster. Okay, normally what we can do, we can configure everything individually, right? For example, I have two ports. Let's assume that one is E0A, another one is E0B. Okay, same way on the other node as well, it is E0A, the first interface, and the second one is E0B. Okay, let's assume in that way. Now what I can do, I can use these interfaces separately. Like for example, normally I can create a LIF on top of this interface for CIFS, and I can create a LIF on top of this interface for NFS. Like that, I can use them separately. Okay, what if both for CIFS and NFS, I'm using same IP address range, same subnet. For example, 192.168.0.x. I'm using this range only for both the protocols. Okay, both for CIFS and NFS. Then instead of creating separate lists for them, what we can do to improve the performance, to improve the load balancing, and to improve the redundancy, we can combine these two interfaces. Okay, we can combine these two interfaces like this. Okay, this is only, we'll call it as if group. For example, I'm naming it as IFGRP1. Okay, if group 1. So if group means nothing but we can combine multiple physical ports and create a virtual port. That is what we'll call it as if group. Okay, if group. So here, let's assume that individually these two are, this is a 10 GB port and this is a 10 GB port. So together they'll work like a 20 GB virtual port. So I'll be having a good bandwidth, right? So my performance will increase, right? Okay, that is a one thing. Another advantage is, for example, if I use individual ports, for example, let's assume that I'm using here this port for CIFS traffic. Okay, and this is for NFS. I have configured separate lifts, right? For example, if this port went down due to some issue, then LIF has to fail over to a different port or different node, right? Right. So yeah, there is no redundancy immediately. But if you configure if group, even if one port fails, no problem. There is another other port under the if group which will take care of the entire traffic. So I have immediate redundancy that is there. And one more thing is, whatever the traffic it is, for example, I'm using CIFS heavily. Like so many users are connecting to accessing my storage via CIFS protocol. NFS is very less. Then I am overutilizing this particular port and I am underutilizing this NFS port, right? But if you configure if group, whether if it is CIFS traffic or NFS traffic, everything will be balanced across both the ports so that the performance will be balanced across both the ports and you'll get a good performance. But in this scenario here, there is so much of burden on E0A. There is very less load on E0B. So the performance is not balanced across both the ports. Okay. So whatever the clients who are accessing CIFS protocol through E0A, they might face performance issues. So that is a one more reason. So with the if group, we'll be having load balancing. Load will be distributed across the ports under the if group so that the performance will be a very good. And one more thing is redundancy. Okay, that means if even one port went down, no problem. There is a other port under if group which will take care of everything and which will make sure that our clients will be able to connect to our storage. Okay, any questions? Okay, now there are three types of if groups. Three types of if groups. One is single mode if group. Second one is multi mode if group. Third one is LACP mode. Okay, these are the three modes available. So whenever you are creating a if group, you need to pick one mode from these three modes. Okay, so we'll talk about each mode now. Okay, how they will work and like when we are going to use them. Okay, now first let's talk about single mode. Single mode. So let's assume that I have a controller and I have two ports on top of this controller. E0A and E0B. Now my plan is to configure if group using these two ports. And what is the if group mode I have used here? It is a single mode if group that I have used here. So when you use a single mode if group, okay, only one port will be up and running, the other port will be in down state. Even though I have two physical ports under my if group, okay, only one port will be up and running. The other port will be in down state and it will be in standby mode. Standby mode means it will be ready to take care of the services whenever the active port went down. Okay, so this is a active passive mechanism. Active passive mechanism. That means only one port will be active, the other port will be passive. Whenever the anything wrong happened with the active port, then the passive port will become active and will do the services. But at a time, only one port will be up and running, and the data transfers and everything will happen through that active port only. So that means in a single mode if group, will be having redundancy. Is the meaning of redundancy? If one component fails also, no problem. There is a other component to cover that, right? That is what we'll call it as redundancy. We have that redundancy. Sorry, we have redundancy here in single mode. But what about the load balancing? we don't have a load balancing. Okay, that is single mode. Next, second one is multi-mode. So in multi-mode, let's assume the same scenario. We have a controller where we have two ports, and just want to configure if group on top of that. Let's assume that this is a multi-mode if group. Okay, and the port names are E0A and E0B. So in multi-mode, both the ports are up and running. Okay, both the ports are up and running. So, and in multi-mode is a active mechanism. Okay, active mechanism. That means the data processing and data request, everything will happen through both the ports. All the time, both the ports are up and running. Okay, and one more thing, guys, it doesn't mean that we can add only two ports. You can create if group with more than two ports also. Like for example, if you want to configure, you can configure a group with 4 ports, 5 ports. Yeah, it's up to you. You can add multiple ports, but what is the point in creating more than 2 ports, right? With the 2 ports, that is more than sufficient. Okay, mostly people will use like that only. Okay, mostly 2 ports, but if you have a requirement where you want to add more ports, yeah, you can do that. Okay, but in single mode, you no need to keep more than 2 ports, right? Because even if you have created a if group with 4 ports also, only one port will be up and running, remaining all 3 ports will be in down state, which passive state, right? Yeah. So yeah, so do we have redundancy here? Yes, we have a redundancy here. That means if one port went down, no problem, uh, other port will take care of the entire traffic. So okay, and do we have load balancing here? Yes, we do have load balancing as well, as both the ports are up and running every time, so that load will be balanced across both the ports. Okay, so there will be no burden on a single port. Now let's talk about third one, which is a LACP. So what is the full form of LACP? LACP means link aggregation control protocol. That is the full form of LACP. So in this is a controller. Let's assume that, and I have 2 ports here. Okay, and I'm creating a group on top of these 2 ports. This is E0A. Let's take that E0B. So in LACP also, both the ports will be in upstate only. Both the ports, they are in upstate. They'll be up and running all the time. So again, LACP also, it is a active mechanism. Okay, active mechanism. So do we have redundancy here? Yes. If one port went down, I have another port which will take care of entire data processing and the data request. So yes, I do have a redundancy. So what about a load balancing? Yes, I do have load balancing as well, because both the ports will be up and running all the time, so that load whatever comes from client will be distributed evenly across all the ports in a if group, and it is a active mechanism. So yeah, so that's a LACP. But my multi-mode is also active. Both the ports are up and running. My LACP also active. Both the ports are up and running. Then what is the difference between multi-mode and LACP? Why LACP? They have again introduced LACP when we have multi-mode. What is the point? What is the difference? Like there is a minute difference between LACP and multi-mode, where in multi-mode, if one port got failed, then it will be not able to identify on its own. For example, let's assume that E0A went down due to some issue. Then if group will be not able to identify that one of the underlying port went down, it will keep on trying to push the traffic through that particular port. Okay. So what we need to do, we need to identify it manually. It will throw alerts. Okay, we need to identify manually, and we have to fail over the traffic. Like we need to divert the traffic manually via the active port. Okay, but when it comes to LACP, okay, when it comes to LACP, LACP is an intelligent mechanism which can detect the port status. Port, if port went down, it will be able to discover on its own, and automatically it diverts the divert the traffic through the active port. So okay, that is the difference between LACP and multimode. Multimode is not intelligent. We need to do some manual work in case of port failure to divert the traffic and all. But when it comes to LACP, yeah, it can do it on its own. Okay, identifying the port failure or port down status, and it will divert the traffic through active port. Okay, any questions?
No, Annaya.
Thank you. Let me save it so that I can give it to you. Okay, now yeah, let's do practically. Let's do everything practically. Okay, I have a LIF already configured. Let me remove that. I think it's on. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove everything from the IP space and the expedited broadcast domain, and I'll add it everything to default broadcast domain. Or else, let me show from here only. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to group F and G, and I'm going to group E and D. Okay, one more thing, guys, you can create a if group on the ports, multiple ports, but those ports should belong to same broadcast domain and same IP space. Okay, that's it. That's the only condition. So network port if group show. Okay, this is the command to display if groups. See, I don't have any if groups now. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a if group with E and D. I'll create a single mode if group create. One more thing, sorry, yeah. What we need to do, if you want to create a if group on top of the ports, first what you need to do, you need to remove them from the broadcast domain. Okay, you need to remove them from broadcast domain. So network port broadcast domain remove ports. From which broadcast domain I just want to remove? I want to remove them from XYZ broadcast domain. Why it is not giving me ports? I just want to remove everything. Okay. Now, if you take a look at the broadcast domain command, see, I don't have any ports there. Now I can create if group on top of that. Just make sure that, just keep that in your mind. Whenever you want to create a if group on top of any interfaces, those interfaces should not be a part of any broadcast domain. Okay. Now network port if group, create port node name, if group name. Normally in older ONTAP versions or in 7 mode, we used to we can give whatever name we want. Okay, but from cluster mode onwards, they have set some standards, like we cannot put whatever name we want. Okay, it will give the if group name automatically. It should be in a standard format, like a port, like A0A, A0B, B0A, B0C, something like that. Okay, so you can, you if you want, you can use whatever it pops up, or you can use a different thing, but it should be in a standard format, like A0A, A0B, B0A, B0D, something like that. Okay, now it is asking for the distribution functions. So there are 4 types of distribution function. Distribution function means nothing but, in under if group we'll be having multiple ports, right? How it has to distribute the load. Is it based on the MAC address of the MAC? Means nothing but, you know that, right? Even whatever the network port we have in our laptop also will be having MAC address. With the help of MAC address only, our computer will be traced. Okay, whenever you do some illegal activities, how police will track us? With the help of MAC address only. Okay, so yeah, is it based on a MAC address that distribution function has to work, or is it based on the IP address, or is it a sequential manner? Like sequential means one request to one port, the next request to second port, something like that, or how it is. So generally, people will use mostly IP or MAC. Okay, let's select IP. But yeah, it's up to your configuration. Mostly we'll proceed this configuration based on the network team recommendations. Okay, and here comes the mode. So which mode you want to implement? I just want to implement a single mode. Okay, that's it. Now I have created a if group, network port if group show, mm, network port if group show. See, I have created a if group, but I have not added any ports under that if group. Now I need to add the ports. Then only the if group configuration will be completed. So network port if group add ports on node 1. I have created this if group. Which if group I'm adding the port? A0A. I'm adding it E0E, okay, E0D and E0E. Now network port if group show. See, now earlier it is showing like no ports underneath if group, my if group. Right now I have 2 ports under my if group. And when it comes to active ports, it is showing partial. Partial means, why it is showing partial? Because as this is a single mode if group, only one port will be up and running. The other port will be in down state, right? That is the reason it is showing partial. Okay, and if you want to take a look at uh, that particular if group state in detail, just add instance, so that it will show you which is a up port and which is a down port. So if you look here, so E0D is a up port and E0E is a down port. Okay, so whatever if you configure a LIF on top of this if group, the data traffic and everything will be handled by E0D only, because that is the active port. E0E is a down port, so that it is a passive port. No data traffic will happen through that particular port. Whenever something wrong with the E0D, then E0E will take responsibility of data transfer. Okay. Yeah. Now you can configure LIF on. Oh, yeah. Next step is, after configuring the if group, you need to add the if group to a broadcast domain and IP space. Then only it will allow you to use it, or else you'll be not able to see that, right? Let me show you that. Network interface create, server name, if name, service policy, role data, home node, home port. Under home port, you will be not able to see A0A. Okay, it is showing, but it will fail. Let me give it a try. Maybe they have changed it. I'm not sure, but you need to add it under broadcast domain. See, A0A is not part of a not member of broadcast domain. That is the reason it is failing. So in order to use any port or if group, okay, you must add that particular port or if group to the broadcast domain. Then only it will allow you to use that particular resource. Okay. So let me add that if group to the broadcast domain. Network port, broadcast domain, add port. Okay, which broadcast domain I'm adding? I'm adding it to default. Let's add it to default by, yeah, IP space also default, right? That's it. Pretty simple. Now I can create a if group, a LIF on top of the if group. See, it allowed. Now if you run network interface show, see, my LIF is on top of this particular if group. So whatever the clients connecting to this particular IP address and LIF, their data will travel through the ports, physical ports under this if group. But as this is a single mode if group, only one port will be active. Okay. One more thing, guys. Whenever you configure a single mode on controller 1, you need to configure same configuration on node 2 as well. You cannot use a different configuration. For example, on node 1 I have configured single mode. uh, can I configure multi mode on node 2? No, it is not recommended actually. Why? Because whenever uh, entire controller went down, okay, this if group configuration, LIF configuration, everything has to fail over to the partner node. During that time, it might cause us problems. So that is the reason, whatever you are configuring, okay, will do it on, we'll apply the same configuration on both the nodes. Okay, we don't configure different configurations on the nodes in the HA pair. It is not recommended actually. So if you configure a single mode, configure single mode on the second node as well. Okay, don't configure multi mode or something like that. But here, as we have less resources, I just want to show you multi mode as well by configuring the multi mode on the second controller. But normally in real time, as I told you, we need to do the same configuration. Now, network port if group create. I'm configuring it on node 2 now. Node 2 also A0A. Yeah, let's use the same name. Distribution function IP only. Mode, this time I'll use multi mode. That's it. Network port if group show. See, I've configured it on node 2 and I don't have any ports on underneath my node 2 if group A0A. Now I need to add the ports. Network port if group add ports node 2 A0A E0E, and you cannot add multiple ports at a time. That's the reason. Okay, E0D. Now see, now I have added both the ports. And if you see active ports here, it is showing full. That means in multi-mode, as I told you, both the ports will be in active state, right? Up and running, both the ports. That is the reason it is showing full. And if you want to have a in detail output, add an instance. So see, on node 1, I have configured single mode. That's the reason only one port is active. On node 2, as I have configured multi-mode, both the ports are in up state. See here, I don't have any down ports. It is showing empty. Okay, this is the way. You know, multi-mode also same thing. Nothing in while creating the mode, while creating the group, you need to mention multi-mode LACP. That's it. Okay. Yeah. Only thing is, yeah, multi-mode is intelligent. And one more thing, guys, whenever you are configuring these kind of if groups and all, you need to work with network team so that they'll also configure the uh, these kind of configurations on their end. Let me explain you that. For example, so this is my controller, right? And these are the two ports on my network controller. Planning to configure if group on top of that. Somewhere these are connected to one of the switch or multiple switches, right? Maybe multiple. Let's assume that this is connected here. This is connected here. So you need to tell them that your plan is to configure a if group. Okay. On network team, network end, they'll call it as a trunking or teaming. They have a different terminology. Okay. So yeah, you need to tell them that you are grouping these two ports so that what they'll do, they'll group these whatever the ports, these ports are connected on network end also as a group. They'll apply the same configuration network end. Then only whatever thing you have configured, it will work, or else it will not work. Okay, it will not work. Okay, did you got it? What I'm saying? Yeah. So whenever you're doing this kind of network configurations, you need to have a coordination with network team. So yeah, same thing. After that, you need to add this if group to mm, broadcast domain, and you can start creating lifts. In some scenarios, we can create if groups, and on top of that, you can create another if group. For example, I have seen a few companies, they are configuring like this. Let me show you that. I have 4 ports where they'll configure if groups. Both are multi-mode or LACP. Mostly people will prefer LACP only. Okay. After that, what they'll do, let's assume that this is a A0A. This is a A0B. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'll configure another if group on top of these two if groups. And I'll configure a single mode if group, which is A0C. Yeah, you can do that. So you'll be having very good redundancy. So at a time, only one if group will be up and running. Okay, right? As this is a single mode, this will be in passive state. That means that whatever the data, everything will happen through these two ports. Okay, these two ports will be in passive state for redundancy. If something went wrong with this entire if group, then the data will flow through this like that. You can, if you want a higher performance and greater redundancy, you can configure like this as well. I have seen few environments where they have configured like this. Okay, any questions? Zubair sir. Okay,
No.
cool. Thank you. Now let's talk about okay, let me show you how to delete and all deleting procedure as well. Simple. First, what you need to do, you need to remove the diff group from the broadcast domain, network port, broadcast domain, remove port, node name, which port I just want to remove A0 here. Okay, I have left right network interface modify vserver name, lif name hyphen status admin down, network interface delete vserver name lif. Now I can remove the port. After that, remove the physical ports from the if group. Network port if group, remove port. What is the node name? What is the if group name? Which port you want to remove? I want to remove E0D and E0E as well. After that, delete the. That's it. First, you need to remove the if group from the broadcast domain. After that, you need to remove the physical ports from the broadcast if group and delete the if group. Okay, this is the flow you need to follow in order to whenever you are deleting the configuration which is related to if group. Okay, next. Now we'll talk about VLAN. Okay, this is another concept. VLAN means nothing but virtual LAN. Okay, so normally LAN means local area network, right? The IP network which will be configured by network team for internal purpose. Wherever all our office devices and everything will be configured. Normally, how they'll configure it is, so this is a network where we'll be having so many switches, network switches and all. Okay. There will be communication between all those network switches. Okay. So with these network switches only, um, it will create a network, virtual normal LAN network, LAN. Again, they can divide this virtual network. Sorry, they can divide this LAN into VLAN on their end. They can divide this network into virtual networks again on their end, like management network, data network, uh, remote network, something like that. They can divide the a single network LAN into multiple virtual LANs. Okay, how that is. So whenever they are configuring the VLAN, they need to assign one ID to the VLAN. Okay, actually VLAN will be not having any name. They have to assign an ID, 1001 something like that, 1202 something like that. They can assign whatever ID they want while creating the VLAN. For example, 10, like that. The VLAN number should be from 0 to 4. I don't remember, 4096 or something. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, it should be in between these numbers. You can use any number you want, but you cannot repeat the same number again in the same LAN. Okay, so yeah, like this they'll configure it. Okay, so normally what VLAN do? VLAN will segregate the traffic. For example, I have a server, okay, which has two ports. I have connected both the ports to, okay, one of the switches in the this LAN network. So here, while configuring this server, okay, while configuring these ports, I'll mention like, okay, add this port to management VLAN and add this port to data VLAN. Okay, like that, I can server team will configure. That means on top of this port, we'll assign a management type. For example, let's assume that management is in 192.168.0.x network. Okay, my data is in 10.11.x network. Let's assume that. Then while configuring the server, they'll assign IP in this format .101, something like that. Okay, for data, let's assume that they have assigned like this 11.223, something like that. So with the help of this management IP, we'll connect to the server and we'll manage it. But whatever the IP they have assigned for data, with the help of this IP only, this particular IP will use it while creating a NFS exports and all. So we'll present storage to this particular IP, so that with the help of this IP, our storage will discover the server and it will present the storage to the server. Storage will be able to access the, server will be able to access the storage via this port. And normally, generally, management port will be like 100 MB port or 1 GB port, whereas data, the port whatever we are using for data, it will be like 10 GB ports or 40 GB ports based on our requirement. Okay, that is the reason. So here I don't want to mix up management traffic and my data traffic. That is the reason I'll segregate, I'll divide my LAN into virtual LANs, so that the management traffic will be separated and data traffic will be separated. Both of them will not collide with each other. Like for example, my data traffic needs more resources, right? And it needs a good performance. Management traffic doesn't require a good performance or good resources, because by using management IP, we just connect to the server and we'll manage it. But with the data network only, right, we'll access everything. And yeah, so yeah, like that. So by using VLANs, we can divide our LAN into virtual, again virtual networks, a single network into multiple virtual networks. Okay, that is the main concept of VLAN on network end. Whatever I discussed so far, this is how, this is what they'll do on network end. Okay, so what is the purpose of us? Like, okay, they'll create virtual LANs on their end. Then why do we need that? Why do we need to configure a VLAN? Let's talk about that. Okay, let's assume that I have a network here where they have segregated their network into three portions, three virtual LANs. One is management VLAN, another one is data VLAN, another one is a DR for remote connectivity with another data center. Okay, now let's assume that I have only two ports on this controller. Normally, what I can do, I can connect one port to data, and I can connect one port to DR, and I can use them, right? Not a problem. I can configure a leaf on top of that, and I can use them. But what if one port went down? What if connectivity went down? That means my client will be not able to access the data through this port, right? My client will be not able to connect to the storage through that particular port, and he'll be not able to access the storage. What if something wrong happened with the DR network? Or let's assume that this is not a DR network, it is a management. It is a management. Then if something wrong happened with the management network, then he'll be not able to connect to the server, right? He'll be yeah. So like that, he will be not able to connect to the storage, right? Through management IP only, we are connecting to the storage and we are doing our daily day-to-day works, right? we'll lose that. We'll lose the connectivity. What we need to do in that case, we need to do a console, or we need to connect to service processor if available, and from there we need to connect like that. These are the things we need to do. So to avoid these kind of issues, okay, what we'll do, you know that already. What we can do, we can configure if group, so that let's assume that I have configured a if group. Okay, if group called A0A. So on top of this if group, I can configure the lifts. And you know that on top of a physical port, or on top of a physical on top of a if group, I can configure multiple lifts. But those the IPs whatever using while creating the lift, they should belongs to the same network. Then only it will work, right? What if my data is using a different IP address range? Okay, and what if my management is using a different IP address range? What will happen in this case? So in this scenario, we need to configure one LIF with a management IP address and one LIF with a data IP address. So I told you already, we cannot create multiple LIFs. We can create multiple LIFs, but the IP address should belongs to the same network. Then it will work. But here in this scenario, I don't want to use ports individually. I want to use if group only, because I need a redundancy and load balancing via both the nodes for management network as well as data network. But here the problem is they are in different IP ranges. If they belongs to same IP range, not a problem. I can configure it very easily. But they belongs to a different IP range. So how I can configure? Now what I need to do is, on top of if group, I need to configure VLAN. Here I'll configure a VLAN called VLAN 10, and I'll configure another VLAN called VLAN 20. VLAN will be not having any name. VLAN will be having only numbers. Okay. Now what I'll do, I'll delegate. Normally I told you, right? On LAN also they'll be having one ID. So we'll use the same ID. For example, on management VLAN they have configured 10 number. For data VLAN they have configured 20. Normally we'll use the same numbers there. It is not like you need to use. It is not mandatory to use the same numbers, but if you use the same numbers, uh, it is very easy to understand, right? Like which VLAN that particular port is connected, like that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a two VLANs on top of my if group. Okay, and on top of this VLAN, I'll configure the management LIF, and on top of this VLAN 20, I'll configure one LIF, and I'll connect this to data LIF. That means I can use the same if group to connect to multiple networks, and I can host um, multiple LIFs which belongs to different networks on top of the same if group with the help of VLAN. Later, I have to create another LIF for DR as well, disaster recovery. So what I need to do, I need to create another VLAN called something with another number. Let's assume that they have used 1006 something number. Then we need to configure a VLAN with the same name. That is the best practice actually. And on top of this VLAN, I'll configure a leaf, and so that it will establish the connection with this virtual network as well. Like that. This is how we can configure multiple lifts which belongs to multiple networks on top of a single if group or single port. Okay, you can do the same with a single port as well. Let's assume that I have a controller where I have only one port. Only one port is there. Okay, only one port is available. So I have to use the same single port for data management and DR. So on top of single port, I'll configure multiple VLANs. We can configure VLAN on top of physical port as well. VLAN 20 and VLAN 1006. On top of this VLAN, I'll configure a leaf. It will connect to management. On top of this VLAN, I'll configure a leaf. It will connect to data. On top of this leaf, I will configure a leaf. It will connect to DR, like that. Okay. So basically, VLAN on Netapp is will help us to configure multiple leafs on top of a single physical port or single if group, which belongs to different network. If they belongs to the same network, you don't need to create a VLAN. You can configure as many leafs as you want directly on top of a if group or physical port. But if they belongs to different networks, you must configure a VLAN. Did you got it now? Hello. Is it clear or any confusion?
Yes, clear, clear.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Guys, if you don't respond, then I'll consider it as a you're okay with the topic. Okay. Okay. Now I'll show you how to configure VLAN. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll show you one VLANs configuring on top of if group, and I'll show you one VLAN configuring on physical port. There is no difference whenever you're configuring that, but I just want to show you. Okay. Now, when I take a look at the network port show, see, I have E0D and E0E, right? Which are not part of any broadcast domain. So what I need to do, I'll configure a if group on top of them. Okay. Network port group create node one name, if group name, IP, multi-mode. Use LSCP. Yeah. Now network port if group add ports node 1 if group name E0E and E0D. Okay. Now I have created a if group. Now what I need to do, I need to configure VLAN as well. Don't add if group to the uh, broadcast domain. You need to create VLANs also. Okay. Network port VLAN show. Okay. This is the command to display the VLANs. See, I don't have any VLANs configured. It is showing empty. Now network port VLAN create node name on top of which port you want to configure. You need to mention that. Here we are configuring on if group, right? So if group name hyphen VLAN number. You can give whatever number you want, but that must be in range of 0 to 4096 or 4995. Some number is there. I don't remember. Okay. Generally, we'll get the VLAN ID from network team only. We'll use the same VLAN ID. Okay. Let's don't use will generally will not use the first number and last number. They have a different purpose. So you can use any number from 1 to before last number, 1 before last number. Okay. Let's use 10 here as we discussed. That's it. Same way you can create multiple VLANs. 20 1006. Okay. Now see network port VLAN show. See, I have created 3 VLANs on the same port on same node. Okay. Now let me try to configure VLANs on second node as well. It will fail because my port is already part of broadcast domain. I think it will fail, but I'm not sure if they have changed something recent days. VLAN create node to A0A hyphen 10. No, it is allowing us actually. That is, they'll keep on changing in every on tap version. Okay. Network port VLAN show. See, I have 3 VLANs created on node 1 if group. I have 3 VLANs created on node 2 if group as well. Okay. So now what do I need to do? I need to add VLAN ports to the if broadcast domain. Then only I can use them, or else it will not allow me to use the Okay, A0A is not part of a broadcast domain. Second port A0A. That is the reason it allowed us to create a VLAN. Okay. See, I don't see A0A in broadcast domain. Okay. Now let's add the VLAN ports to the broadcast domain. Port broadcast domain. Add ports. Default broadcast domain only. Node 1 A0A hyphen 10. I'm adding. I'll add 20 as well. I'll add 1006 as well. The same way, add ports. Default node 2 A0A hyphen 10 20. Oh, sorry, 26. Okay. Now see network port broadcast domain show. If you see here, see all my VLAN ports also part of broadcast domain now. And if you see network port show, all our if groups VLAN ports also will be visible to you as just like a physical ports. How physical ports are visible, right? If you run a network port show, the same way it is displaying the VLAN ports as well as if group as well. Okay. So now what do I need to do? I need to configure LIF on top of the VLAN port. That's it. Network interface create server name, LIF name, whole data hyphen home node 1 hyphen home port, and home port I need to use VLAN. Okay, address 192.168.0.10121. Okay, netmask 255.255.255.0 hyphen status admin up. Okay, the same way, let me configure another IP. Normally, but here it will not work because we don't have VLAN all these configured on network end in the lab, so they'll not work. But in real time, yeah, you need to work with network team and you can configure multiple VLANs. 21. Now I need to change the VLAN port as well. Let's use 20 and let's use the LIF2. See, network interface show. See, I have configured different IPs on top of a same. Oh, did I use E0C? Why it is showing E0C? Used A0 here, right? Okay, why? Maybe because as we have configured VLAN, that VLAN will not work. That is the reason it moved, I guess. Failover and all already configured. That's the reason it is bringing the two, because we have not configured the things related to VLAN on network end, right? So our VLAN port will be in down state. See, showing down. So I told you, right? Whenever a port is down, automatically it will be moved to uh, different port, right? I told you LIF will be moved to a different port. Let me bring it back because LACP is not will not work. We need to do some configurations. So network port if group modify, or okay, we cannot modify. Okay, that's okay. Ignore that. Okay, let me create a same thing on node 2. here, yeah, these are on same VLAN LIF. Why it moved to E0C is because those ports are down in down state. That's the reason it moved, LIF moved to a different port, which is a up port. See here, because I used LACP, so LACP is not configured. That's the reason they are showing down. But here I have used normal multi-mode. Multi-mode is already configured. That's why it is showing up here. Okay, so don't worry about that. Any questions on VLAN creation?
No, Naya.
No.
Cool. So same thing. Whenever if you want to clean the configuration, first you need to bring the if groups, sorry, lifts down. Network interface modify server name, lift status admin down. I'm bringing all the lifts down, 4 lifts. Okay. Now I'll delete all the lifts. Interface delete server name, lift name. I'm deleting all 4 lifts. Okay. Now network port. I need to remove the ports from the broadcast domain. Remove port, default broadcast domain, node 1, A0A. Let me see. It will not work. Actually, wildcard entries will not work here. 10, 20, 006. The same way, I need to do it for the second as well. Okay. So now they are not part of any broadcast domain now. See. So now I can delete them. So network port VLAN delete node name and VLAN name. I think I can delete all of them. Let me see. Yeah, I've deleted all 3 VLANs. I've used wildcard entry. Okay, now see network port VLAN show. I don't have any VLANs. Okay, after that delete the if group. Yeah, that's done. Any questions? This is how you can configure if groups and VLANs. Okay, so do you want me to continue or do you want me to stop here? Okay, let's stop it for here. Just practice because networking concepts are very, very important when it comes to interview perspective as well. And if you go to little higher level like L3 and all, you need to manage all these things. Normally L2 people will not handle all these things because these all things related to critical configurations, right? And you need to decide, make a decision while configuring these things. So yeah, L2s will not get a chance to configure all these things. But if you go to L3 level, yeah, you are the responsible for configuring these things. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's meet tomorrow.